Hi class, good evening. So I am recording this video to reinforce our first discussion for your finals for your environmental science. So hopefully you will catch up with our lesson, especially those who were not able to attend our lesson earlier. Now this is just a brief review of what we had discussed. So in the first part of our discussion earlier, we had reviewed about our examination and we had rationalized our exam. So hopefully you're able to take down notes of those important details that we had mentioned. Most especially that our coverage for this coming finals will be from the very beginning of our discussion up to the very end ng ating discussion sa inyong environmental science. Now, just a brief review of your environmental science. So what we had discussed so far, first is science and the environment, its meaning and scope and importance. So that's for your chapter 1. We've discussed about environmental science, ecology, and the approaches of the study of ecosystem. So hopefully you are catching up. System ecology, we've discussed about also theoretical ecology, the evolutionary ecology, what is adaptation, of course, the forms of adaptation, physiological adaptation, the evolutionary adaptation, the two divisions of ecology. We've discussed about autoecology and synecology. When say autoecology, it's the study of individual population, which includes physiological ethology or ethology and a population. Now, for your synecology, it's the complex study that concerns plant and animals constituents, including ecosystems. Now, we've discussed also in your chapter 2 about the basic ecological laws and principles. When say laws, these are things that are made in order to create harmony and peace and order. Now, for our basic ecological law, we have the law of balance, sensitivity, specificity, susceptibility, universality, and temporality. Now, for subsidiary law, you can refer to your screen. We have also discussed about the core messages in your environmental science, such as the law of balance, diversity and stability, interdependence, change, pollution, fitnesses of resources, and stewardship. For nature, has its own laws and processes to maintain itself according to the law of balance. We've also discussed about diversity and stability, so on and so forth. Now, we've also discussed about the components of your ecosystem for our chapter 3. Don't forget about the following. So first is your ecosystem is composed of your biotic and abiotic organisms or components rather. When you say biotic, bio means life. It has life. It breeds, and it at the same time it reproduces its own kind. Abiotic means means the absence of life, and biotic means life. Now, abiotic factors may include physical factors and chemical substances such as light, temperature, rainfall, climate, geology, lahat yon. Lahat ng inanimate object, meaning inanimate, hindi siya nakakagalaw on its own, wala siyang locomotion, wala siyang movement. Yun lang. Tandaan niyo lang yan. Now, ecosystem, according to British ecologist Sir Arthur George Stanley, sabi niya, ecosystem is in constant interchange. We've also discussed about your components of ecosystem. Of course, we discussed about our producers or the autotrophs, consumers or the heterotrophs, which is divided into 3. First is your herbivores. Herb means kumakain siya ng plants. Carnivores means kumakain siya ng karne or flesh. And your omnivores, which eat both plants and your flesh or animals or meat. Now, for your biosphere, it is a portion of your atmosphere that supports life. So remember this one. Now, we've also discussed about your abiotic components of ecosystem and climate change and geology. Of course, we discussed about climate, the difference between climate and weather. Climate is the long term, weather is the forecast or the short term. Climate can greenhouse gases can affect climate, high temperature, cold, rainfall, and humidity and oxygen. Of course, we discussed also about your geology, the study of planet Earth, rocky exterior. Geo means earth or land or mass of land. So remember that. It is also called your earth science. We've also discussed about your soil profile, the process of weathering. Now, rocks undergo a process called weathering, kung saan it breaks down into smaller pieces, smaller and simpler pieces, resulting to the formation of your soil. Remember that. We have different kinds of soil profile. And soil weathering, we have mechanical, the chemical, and the biological. I know you are well aware of the differences of these three. Soil formation is formed from the weathering of rocks. So it is made up mainly of mineral particles. Your soil is not just merely composed of one single dominant element, but instead it is a mixture of different minerals, organic materials, air, water, lahat-lahat na halo-halo. Now, for your abiotic components, we have also discussed about your producers or autotrophs. At the same time, your consumers or heterotrophs, herbivores, carnivores, and your omnivores. Now, for this chapter, for chapter 4, this will be a very brief yet a very detailed discussion. So I want you to lend your ears and to focus. For our first topic for your MST, for finals, we have our essential processes in your ecosystem. When we say processes, those are step-by-step na mga procedures. It could be process. It is something that you do in order to achieve something. If you want to have a product, you need to undergo a process. Now, for the different processes to be understood, we need first to understand about the biotic components in the ecosystem. When we say biotic components, this bio means life. These are the life components in your ecosystem. So it is subdivided into three. First is your primary, number two is your primary producers, number two is your consumers, and number three is your decomposers. Now, for your primary producers, these are the biotic component which are responsible in manufacturing their own food. When I say producers, they are the one who produce their own food and they become a source of food for others. Since nakaka-produce sila ng sarili nilang food, they themselves become a source of food to the other parts of the biotic components of your ecosystem. Remember that they synthesize organic substances from inorganic molecules by using light or chemical energy for manufacture of their own food. So practical example of this is your plants, trees, and herbs. Lahat ng klase ng tanim, they are considered to be your producers. Now, producers or primary producers undergo one important and essential um, process called photosynthesis. We know that photosynthesis, the word photo means light and synthesis means creation. The creation of food through light is the process by which plants uses sunlight, water, and your carbon dioxide to create oxygen and energy in the form of your sugar. So tandaan ulit natin yan. It is a process which plants uses sunlight, water, and your carbon dioxide to create oxygen and energy in the form of sugar. Now, the process of photosynthesis is commonly written as 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water is equals to starch, sugar, or glucose, yun yung tawag nila, plus 6 molecules of your oxygen. Now, on the far left, the 6CO2 is your, these are your reactants. Now, the product will give you starch. Dito sa right naman, the C6H12O6 and the 6 molecules of oxygen as your byproduct. So if you're going to be asked, ano po yung byproduct ng photosynthesis, yun po ay glucose, starch or sugar, and oxygen. Ilang parts ng oxygen? 6 na molecules. Kung tatanungin ka naman, ilang molecule ng carbon dioxide ang needed to perform the basic photosynthesis process? Of course, it's 6. Kasi 6CO2 nga. At the same time, 6 din sa water. Okay? Tandaan. Now, to further discuss, let's take a look at chlorophyll. Excuse me. Chlorophyll plays a role in your photosynthesis. That is why ang mga tanim ay color green. Most of the leaves are green because the responsible for the green pigmentation of your leaf or leaves is your chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is also known as the green pigment that harvest light for photosynthesis. Tandaan nyo class, that without the chlorophyll, there will be no photosynthesis. Now, this is what happens during photosynthesis. Now, your solar light, as you can see here, your solar light is readily available kasi nandyan lang naman siya. Nandyan lang naman yung init. In the daylight, nandyan lang siya in the surroundings. Now, your chlorophyll, which is located at the leaves, trunks, stems, or branches of your tree or your plant, which is which can be found in their surfaces, captures the light energy. Now, this light energy plus the carbon dioxide, the 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus the 6 molecules of water will undergo a so-called process photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means creation, the creation of food among plants with the use of sunlight. Now, may I ask you, can you expect photosynthesis without light? Of course not, because for you to observe photosynthesis among plants, you need to have sunlight. That is why for those who love to put green plants inside their home, if wala po yung access sa sunlight, what will happen is later part, nagiging yellow siya because hindi na siya nakakakain. There is no more photosynthesis. And yung chlorophyll level niya is bumababa. Okay, naintindihan nyo? Kaya if you want to recover your plant, you just have to put it outside, maiinitan siya, and there, it will regain its beauty again. Okay, so going back, photosynthesis uses solar energy being absorbed by the chlorophyll combined with the 6 parts or 6 molecules of your carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of your hydrogen undergoing photosynthesis and giving you the product glucose or sugar or starch and oxygen. Kasi minsan yung ginagamit nila for the product or byproduct of your photosynthesis is starch or sugar. So it could interchangeably be used since it surely still signifies sugar, no? Kung glucose man yan, sugar pa din yung glucose plus your oxygen. Now, I want you to see that there are 6 molecules of oxygen produced in one simple chemical reaction or chemical process for your photosynthesis. Now, kung walang carbon dioxide, do you think photosynthesis will occur? Of course not. Because kompleto dapat. Kung wala din water, hindi din tayo makaka-expect na meron pong glucose. Kasi the molecules of the water will be contributory to the product glucose, sugar, or starch. Now, number 2, that's under your, if I'm going to go back here, that's under your primary producers. Anong process yon? Photosynthesis. Again, what is photosynthesis? It's the process of which plants uses sunlight, water, and your carbon dioxide to create oxygen and energy in the form of your sugar. The process of photosynthesis is commonly written as 6 carbon dioxide molecule plus 6 water molecule is equals to sugar, starch, or glucose plus 6 molecules of your oxygen. And chlorophyll is one of the major responsible pigment in your plants, no? Na nagka-capture ng light energy. That is why wala tayong chlorophyll. Kasi kung may chlorophyll ka siguro in the skin, you might just look like a plant or a trunk or a stem or a branch. Question, does photosynthesis takes place only on the leaf? Of course not, kasi we have plants that are less in leaves, but they are more on stem, na green, so they could possibly be a source or a location for your photosynthesis. Number 2, consumers. The second biotic component in your ecosystem is your consumers. They are non-chlorophyll bearing organism. Because kung chlorophyll bearing sila, supposedly they can also manufacture their own food that depend upon other organisms for nourishment. Now, tanong, ang fungi ba plant or hindi? Hindi siya plant. It's fungi. It's a microorganism. It's part of the fungi na group. Ayan. So since wala siyang chlorophyll, no, meron siyang parang leaf, pero it is not really a leaf, but is part of its stem according to our microbiology teacher kasi natanong ko din yan dati. Now, for your consumers, lahat ng kumakain ng producers are considered to be consumers and they are non-chlorophyll-bearing organisms. Now, ang process naman na ina-undergo ng mga consumers is a so-called process cellular respiration. Kanina, sa ating primary producers na pag-aralan natin na ang ina-undergo nyo na ecological process is your photosynthesis. But for in the site of your cellular respiration, ito naman ay ina-undergo ng mga consumers. Now, cellular respiration is a series of chemical reactions that breaks down glucose to produce ATP. Tatandaan nyo ha, which may be used as energy to power many reactions throughout the body. Now that meron na tayong glucose, alam nyo na yung glucose ay hindi yun agad-agad makakain or magagamit ng body natin. Ano yung glucose, Sir Toto? Sir, it could be in a form of sugar, your table sugar. For example, may kasang tubo in pagaling, no? And in process, may sugar ka. That's a very, very basic product of that could be a sugar, no? Pwede yan siya. Now, to produce ATP. Now, which may be used as energy to power many reactions throughout the body. Now, cellular respiration is a series of chemical reaction that breaks down to produce ATP, which may be used as energy to power many reactions throughout the body. Ang basic example ko dito na ginamit during our class is that during photosynthesis, hindi kasi nga na-produce yung glucose, hindi mo naman agad magagamit yung glucose. So what your body will do is to convert it into simpler na substance or simpler na molecule, and that is through ATP. Ganito kasi yung class. For example, may kape ka at medyo malabnaw, gusto mong lagyan ng asukal. Since sugarcane or yung tubo is a source of sugar, pwede mo bang ilagay yung tubo agad doon sa coffee and you will expect na tatamis yung coffee? Di ba hindi? You have to let it undergo process of refining, ipagaling, ipabukbok until magamit mo na siya as your sugar for your coffee. That is the same principle with your cellular respiration. Now, before siya magagamit ng cells of your body, kailangan niya munang ma-process into ATP, into simpler form of your sugar, your ATP, which may be used as energy to power many reactions throughout the body. Now, yung brain, kaya nga yung mga taong hindi nagbe-breakfast, ito ha, they are actually slowly killing their brain. Bakit? Kasi ginugutom nila. Now, yung ATP pa naman, ginagamit natin ito for locomotion, for brain activity, for your muscular contraction. Lahat yun ginagamitan natin ng ATP. So can you just imagine, hindi ka kumakain and mapayat ka pa. So paano ka nun magiging healthy? But for the cases also of, this is the importance of sugar in your body. I'm just showing you of the importance of sugar in your body. Now, for an instance, mayroon tayong diabetic patient. Alam niyo yung mga diabetic patient, they have a sky-high sugar level in their blood. Now, pero may tendency din yan sila na ma-endanger if there is a very low sugar level in their blood, called hypoglycemia. Now, ang na-feel mo, di ba, pag kulang kasang sugar or wala ka nagkaon-kanon, no? It's a starch. Rice grains are starch. They are also product of your photosynthesis. Now, kung hindi ka kumain nun, of course, walang source at first yung body mo of your glucose. So what will happen is manghihina ka. The same true happens with your hypoglycemic patients. Kaya nga may tinatawag silang sugar rush kasi nagbabaon talaga yun sila ng chocolate or anything sweet na nilalagay nila sa kanilang bulsa so that when the time comes na nahihilo sila, kakain lang. And I have a professor na nagtuturo na ngayon sa Santo Tomas na he is batang bata, mga 27, but he is daily injecting insulin in order to regulate the glucose level in his body. Now, again, ang cellular respiration is a process involved in your consumer. This is, of course, to break down glucose kasi hindi readily nagagamit ng body yung glucose to produce ATP. Yun yung ATP ang ginagamit natin ng cell. Sa cell level, yun yung ginagamit ng katawan natin in order to carry out its functions such as brain activity, muscular contraction, etc., etc. Now, for your ATP, it is also known as the adenosine triphosphate as the source of energy for use and storage at the cellular level. Again, cellular level, meaning yung cell kasi natin, those are things viewed under your microscope. So can you just imagine how small they are, that they only need ATP para mag-function sila well? Ayan. Now, the structure of ATP is a nucleoside triphosphate consisting of a nitrogenous base adenine, a ribose sugar, and three serially bonded phosphate groups. Kaya nga siya tri kasi tatlo. Adenosine, adenine, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, tatlong phosphate. Tatanungin kayo sa quiz or exam, ilang molecule or ilang serially bonded phosphate ang kakailanganin natin. We have to have 3 kasi triphosphate siya. Later on, you will discover about the diphosphate. Kung say di, dalawa naman yon. Okay? So, again, your ATP or your adenosine triphosphate is a very major energy source of your body. Now, this is what happens sa inyong katawan. When you eat milk, a banana, lahat ng sugar containing, napapasok yan sa katawan. Okay, na-digest, na absorb sa inyong digestive walls, and it undergoes cellular respiration which breaks down sugar into simply or glucose into simpler form ATP. Now, yung ATP mo, yun yung nagagamit ng katawan mo for bodily functions such as your brain activity, movements, locomotions, lahat-lahat na yun. Yung pag-contract ng heart mo, it also requires your ATP. Okay? Naintindihan ba ito? Again, for your primary procedures, ang nakababa dyan na process is your photosynthesis. When say photosynthesis, the food-making process among plants which uses sunlight, water, and your carbon dioxide to form sugar, glucose, or your starch plus your 6 molecules of oxygen. And chlorophyll plays a role. Ayan, it's a green pigment that captures light. Kung kulang ng isa dito sa equation, hindi po magiging successful. Number 2, consumers, ano yung process na under sa kanya? It is your cellular respiration. Again, yung example ko dito for your cellular respiration is like drinking a cup of coffee and using sugarcane, a literal sugarcane to sweeten your coffee. Hindi pwede. So kailangan niya mag-undergo some breaking down called cellular respiration wherein the glucose is being broken down to produce ATP or your adenosine triphosphate. Your adenosine triphosphate is composed of one nucleoside consisting of one nitrogenous base or your adenine or your adenosine, a ribose sugar, and your tatlong phosphate groups. Now, this is what happens to your body kung kumakain ka ng fats, carbohydrates, others, your digestive system will digest it, your linings in your intestine will of course will absorb it later on, and it will convert your glucose to your ATP as the available source of energy in the cellular level of your body. Next, there are 3 main steps of cellular respiration. I don't want you to dig further about this, just memorize about glycolysis, your citric acid cycle, and your oxidative phosphorylation. Now, number 3, biotic component in the ecosystem is your decomposers. And I don't want to dwell so much about this kasi madali lang ito. Decomposers, they obtain energy by breaking down complex molecules such as proteins, fats, dead plants, and animals. Excuse me. Now, can you just imagine an ecosystem without a decomposers? I think there will be piles and piles of dead bodies na hindi siya nade-decompose. For example, yung tree na 100 years ago na, without decomposers, they will never be broken down into simpler na form. Okay, so I hope that you are understanding. So your decomposers also play a vital role in the processes uh, of your ecosystem. They are actually biotic components. You say biotic, they are able to multiply, dumadami, nagre-reproduce ng kanyang own kind. Now, for your decomposers, this includes your bacteria and your fungi. Yun lang po yung tatandaan ninyo for your decomposers. Going back again, so we have three biotic components for your ecosystem. That includes your primary producers undergoing photosynthesis, number two, consumers undergoing cellular respiration, and number three, your decomposers, which is responsible for the decomposition of dead bodies, plants, and animals. I hope, class, that you're able to catch up. Kung may mga hindi naintindihan, you can go back and return back to this video. But for now, no, I want you to study and I want you to get familiar of all these concepts. I also reviewed a bit of what we had discussed in the midterms, so that pagka-finals, you'll just have to study a little bit of it and be reminded of some concepts. Now, again, for primary producers, your very important process here is your photosynthesis. Your chlorophyll serves as the green pigment, and they harvest light for photosynthesis. Now, in this diagram, you can see solar energy being absorbed through chlorophyll, plus the addition of your carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of your water, giving you um, the process photosynthesis and giving you the byproduct of glucose, starch, or sugar plus your oxygen, or your 6 molecules of oxygen. For your consumers, they are non-chlorophyll bearing organisms, kaya nga sila nagko-consume lang because they don't have chlorophyll. Okay, in your cellular respiration naman, it is involved in your consumers, which is a series of chemical reactions that breaks down glucose to produce ATP. Now, ang glucose ba ay readily used by the body? No. That's why it must have undergone cellular respiration in order to be broken down into smaller pieces called the ATP. Now, ATP is responsible for your brain activity, muscular movements, lahat-lahat ng ginagawa ng katawan mo, locomotions, it uses ATP. Kahit yung pagbangon at pakikinig mo, may ATP na i-involve dyan, which may be used as energy to power many reactions throughout the body. Now, for your ATP, it is called adenosine triphosphate because it contains one adenine-based nitrogenous na ribose sugar or your adenine, and your tri kasi tatlong phosphate. That's ATP, very basic. Now, ATP is the source of energy for use and storage at the cellular level kasi we are dealing with your cellular level. Now, this is what happens to your body kung kumakain ka from chemical energy, milk, lahat ng matatamis, ida-digest yan ng iyong digestive system, and eventually it will be absorbed by the linings of your digestive tract, and doon na, no, from glucose, i-break down siya through cellular respiration into ATP, and your ATP is readily available for the use for any bodily activities. Now, there are three main steps of your cellular respiration. Again, your glycolysis, your citric acid cycle, and your oxidative phosphorylation. But number three, wag natin kakalimutan, kanina meron tayong primary producers, your consumers, and number three, your decomposers. They obtain energy by breaking down the complex molecules such as your proteins, fats, dead plants, and animals. So decomposers includes your bacteria and your fungi. So going back kanina, no? So here in the first biotic components in the ecosystem, kung walang primary producers, do you think mabubuhay si consumers? Of course not. Kung wala namang consumers, do you think may use si primary producers? Of course not. Kaya hindi siya masisira, walang decomposers. Number three, kung walang decomposers, do you think matutunaw si primary producers and consumers? No, hindi. Kaya that's why every one of them plays an important role. But I see the greater role in the decomposer sides. Kasi can you just imagine kung wala pong mga bacteria and fungi and decomposers, hindi po talaga sila hindi sila madunot. So there will be piles of dead bodies, probably, or dead plants, animals, or trees if in the absence of your decomposers. So I hope that you had learned so far. Ayan, ang amazing kung paano ginawa ni Lord yung ecosystem, that all are interdependent to one another. So just wait for your lecture notes, and that is all for tonight for our first lesson for the essential processes in your ecosystem for your finals topic chapter 4. Thank you so much, class, and God bless you.